Now, at least 70 vigilance group members have reportedly been killed following an ambush by gunmen in Bonyun community of Kanem local government area of Plateau State. The incident reportedly occurred on Monday at about 2 p.m. Aliyu Bafa, the chairman of the vigilance group in Kukawa, said the massacre occurred just a kilometer away from the main Kukawa town when bandits ambushed the vigilantes as they were heading to their hideout in the government reserve forest, popularly known as Madam Forest. The chairman said he, however, discovered that the gunshots were from vigilantes who had come from Dogonruwa Safiyo to fight bandits in their hideouts. Now, tension is brewing in Nigeria's Senate today as a possible showdown looms between Senate leadership and suspended Kogi Central lawmaker, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. This follows a viral video where Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan, hailed by cheering supporters, announced plans to return to the Red Chamber today despite her suspension. She thanked her constituents for their unwavering support after a federal high court ruled in her favor last Friday. The court nullified her 6-month suspension, calling it excessive, unconstitutional, and a violation of her constituents' right. The ruling ordered her immediate reinstatement. Now, the federal government has officially pegged entry admission year into the nation's tertiary institution at age 16. This came as the government warned that any admission conducted outside of the central admission processing system, CAPS, would be illegal and perpetrators would be prosecuted. The Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, said this on Tuesday while declaring open the ongoing policy meeting of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, in Abuja. He warned that the heads of institutions found to be engaged in admission fraud would face prosecution. Now, Alausa declared that the official age of 16 set by the government is not negotiable. We now go to Labour matters. The Nigeria Labour Congress has threatened to embark on a nationwide protest over the rising insecurity, poverty and high cost of living crisis in the country. This is as it warned that Nigerian workers would no longer sit idly by while the nation's economy and democracy crumble. NLC, in a communique signed by its president, Joe Ajaero, and the General Secretary, Emmanuel Ubwaja, said the almost 700,000 lives lost in just a year to insecurity in Nigeria can only happen in nations at war. It also warned that when farmers could not access their lands to farm, farming becomes a looming danger. The Congress condemned what it called the government's failure to secure lives and property and demanded immediate action. Meanwhile, the leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities has issued a directive for all branches of the union nationwide to withdraw their services over the delay in the payment of June 2025 salaries to its members. Now, ASU branches in 2 federal universities, the Universities of Jos and Abuja, have already commenced industrial action in compliance with the directive. President of ASU, Professor Chris Piwona, who confirmed the development on Monday in Abuja, said what the institutions are doing is simply enforcing a National Executive Council (NEC) resolution of the union that members should withdraw their services in any month in which salaries are delayed beyond 3 days until the salaries are paid. Now, despite the huge shortfall in budgetary allocations over the years, the proliferation of public and private universities has been on the rise for decades. While private universities boast of quality education, public universities, on the other hand, struggle with providing basic learning infrastructure. News Central's Omolola Ololade has more in this report.
The rapid expansion of universities in Nigeria may have increased access to higher education, but at a steep cost, raising concerns about the delivery of affordable and quality education in the country.
I think it's not a bad idea as long as they don't just, abandon projects. They go in with the sincere intentions and the right structure, the right people in administration, and understand that it's a long-term journey to build proper universities.
For private universities to start coming up is to give us a standard education we deserve as a country. But assuming federal government did what they're supposed to do, private university, I think, is not, they won't encourage people to come in and see if it's a good business for them.
I am worried about the rate at which we open universities in this country. Even though I cannot say the number is adequate, but of course when you look at the quality, it's appalling. What the government should do is to focus on the existing university and improve infrastructure and quality of instructions that are coming out there, quality of research and all that. I think that should be the focus.
While students in private institutions enjoy an unbroken academic calendar and quality teaching, the story in federal institutions is pathetic. Most of these public universities get scant attention from the government as they lack even the basic learning facilities and infrastructure.
To get out of state-of-the-art infrastructure to run a university is not an easy thing, because the kind of physical structure that is needed is huge. Let us look at sport complex for example. To get a sport complex of international standard, it needs a lot of money.
According to data, Nigeria currently has 219 universities, with the recent approval of 22 new universities by President Tinubu, despite the Minister of Education's warning to halt the excessive establishment of new universities. The National Universities Commission lists 49 federal universities, 59 state-owned and 111 private universities. Educationists, however, believe that overhauling the country's educational system should start with strengthening the existing universities rather than creating new ones.
Then the second generation universities were motivated by political development. And that was when we began to have problems in university creation. We now move from necessity to politics. So that element of politics can still be seen in the various universities that are created recently. When universities were created out of politics, well, we know what will follow.
The idea for the proliferation of Nigerian universities, particularly private institutions, remains a flawed decision according to educationists, as they believe it does not find a lasting solution to the country's tertiary education problems. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
Still on the matter, we're now joined by the National Mobilization Officer of the Education Rights Campaign, Michael Lennon. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right, Michael, I'm going to start off by asking, how do you assess the impact of Nigeria Labour Congress threat of the nationwide protests on the country's social as well as economic stability?
Thank you very much for that. We are very much familiar with the labor movement, and we know that clearly anytime labor is on strike, it's like the whole nation is on standstill. And that is why for many of us as activists, we always urge the Nigerian labor leadership, to do the needful by, at every point in time, standing in the interest of workers. And we've had many threats issued by the labor movement, many statements. But the reality is that many of them have come to be empty, because we have not really seen the practicality in many of the threats they've issued in the recent period. In fact, they've issued threats about welfare of workers. They've issued threats, at some point, a month ago, it was on the tariff of calls and data and so. So we've had many threats that have not really been translated into concrete action. So that what we expect from a serious labor movement, especially at this point in time, where many workers have been victims of the horrific living condition on the basis of the policies of the government. We expect that threats, labor by now should have gone beyond issuing threat, and so it should be how to confront the government on basic issues that affect our workers.
So I want to believe that some of these labor actions are the labor organizations' ways of confronting, the government, right? But let's look at what's led to these labor actions in the first place, and that is the the rising cost of living, the insecurity, the unemployment. What are the implications of these challenges, of these menaces in the society on the labor market?
Well, I think for every Nigerian, it is clearly visible in the last 2 years, when the administration of Tinubu started unleashing its attacks on Nigerians, starting with the removal of fuel subsidy, without any attempt to make the refinery, the public refinery, functional or even build new ones. And we've seen how it directly created crisis in the lives of many average people today. In fact, if you ask many Nigerians how their lives have fared in the last 2 years, many of the responses will be in the negative, that lives have become so horrible. In fact, you just need to take a walk to any market and ask random people that what is even their condition. They will explain to you in reality that things have become worse. And there are always, there are a lot of stats to back up these are calamities that Nigerians are facing. If you look at the rate of inflation, you see that they are at very abysmal rates, and they continue to decline. Unemployment and other indices to measure growth and economic development are all in the negative in the last 2 years. Of course, before now, long before now, we've had a lot of crises for now. But what we are saying is that on the basis of the newly introduced policies of the government, but most of it, we've gone from a bad situation to a worse situation. So that clearly, for many working class and average people, their lives have gone worse in the last 2 years.
So I'm very curious as to the veracity of some of these labor actions, because over time we've heard that, this body is going on strike, this one is going on strike, and after a while you hear that there was a closed door meeting and this one's, went back on their agreement to actually go on strike. So there's sometimes a lot of, disunity in the body when it comes to the labor unions. So how then can we trust that these people are true to the cause, that they would actually fight until they're heard by the government and there would be no distractions or closed door meetings that would make them go back on their words?
Well, thank you. What you just explained now is also the concern of many Nigerians, especially many of us who are on the front line of the battle against the government, is that many times that labor movement to call action, sometimes even before they commence the action, even before meetings or so, they will just call it off. Okay. The last protest they had, which was meant to hold for 2 days. After the first day, they declared that that they fulfilled their motive of calling for the protest itself. And then we asked them, what has been fulfilled? Is it that lives have become better for Nigerians, or is it that all of the demands that you raised to the government, have they even been able to meet any of them? But that was because of just a single meeting with the government, just as you've explained. So that there's a crisis itself in the leadership of the labor movement. But it must also go beyond this, because what we are talking here is about the lives of Nigerian workers, millions of workers who are victims of this crisis. So that our own call is that workers themselves must take the initiative to hold their leadership accountable. You cannot just hear that there's a strike today and then the next hour you hear that someone has declared as a cause of the strike. Just a single person to determine the fate of millions of workers. No, that itself should not be encouraged. Nigerian workers must, at different levels, either at the branch level, at their state level, and different apparatus of the labor structure, should hold their leaders to account to ensure that when our strike are called, they are truly implemented. And we take this example from ASU. President ASU has declared the strike. And anytime ASU declares strike, even if they hold any meeting with the government, they always go back to their members to seek for the opinion that, okay, this is what the government is saying. What should we do? What is the next step to be taken? So that the labor users themselves must follow this example, which is what has made ASU to be, in fact, one of the most potent unions that we still have out there today. So that the issue itself goes beyond just the leadership, who in most cases have demonstrated different intention that they are not truly ready to follow up their call concretely. So that like I said, the call itself is on Nigerian workers to not just support radical movement and also support initiative outside of the official labor leadership, but to also hold their leaders to account. So that because if in a country where people just do as they wish, if I shows that just few persons can compromise and make compromise that will affect the lives of the thousands and millions of persons. So the call is on us, because if you go back and forth, the crisis still affects many of us, many young workers, many poor workers, many average workers today. They are the real victims of all of these crises too. Because if you look at the lifestyle of many of the labor leadership today, sometimes it's even not connected to the lives of the average worker of today. In fact, many of them live like government officials too. So that it is the poor people who go to market who know how much they spend from their monthly pay at the market, who know how much they pay as school fees of their children, who know how much they pay as rent, and who know that these figures are not in a way corresponding to what they earn. It is their own, in fact, it is their call to hold their fate to their own hands and ensure that other strike action, other protests are being implemented.
All right, National Mobilization Officer of the Education Rights Campaign, thank you so much for joining us, Michael Lenin, to share your thoughts. And I'm hoping that this is not like status quo. It's not like how we used to have it before, where they'll come out with all fire, guns blazing, and say that they want to go on strike, and after a while they go back on their words. Not to encourage strike, but what needs to be done needs to be done. So exactly. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, it's time now to go on our short break. When we come back, we will be looking at another story which focuses on the police launching probe as Sanusi Bayero supporters clash in Kano State. Do stay with us. We'll bring you the details of the story and more after the break. Hey, thanks for staying with us. We're heading now to Oyo State, where the people of Ibadan have continued to mourn the passing of the Olubadan Oba Owolabi Olakunleyin, who passed on Monday at the age of 90. He was crowned the 43rd Olubadan on July the 12th, 2024 by Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde. Former Governor of Oyo State, Rashidi Ladoja, is expected to assume the role as the 44th Olubadan of Ibadan land. News Central's Victor Umbadike has more.
The death of the Olubadan of Ibadan, His Imperial Majesty Oba Owolabi Olakunleyin, comes barely 12 months after he ascended the revered throne of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, a position he ascended after the demise of ex-Oyo Senator Oba Moshood Lekan Balogun, who equally died in March 2024 at the age of 81.
Would like to give glory to God for a life well spent. For us, it is a celebration of life. There is no money. He had his 90th birthday on Saturday, the 5th of July. He ascended to the throne of his father, becoming the Olubadan of Ibadan after a 43-year journey. So either way you look at it, from family life to military career to business, obviously lived a successful life.
Ibadan, an ancient city and historical settlement of warlords, is renowned for its unique system of selecting its traditional ruler, the Olubadan.
Please permit me.
The hierarchical arrangement in the Ibadan system has a two-line approach: the Balogun system, military in nature, and the Olubadan or Tun system, civilian in nature. Now, this innovation became a regular feature, leading to the involvement of two separate chieftaincy lines: the Bale title, which gave the holder civic responsibility, while the Balogun title belonged to the war chiefs.
So it is not a ruling house chieftaincy. It's a Republican chieftaincy that alternates from Balogun to Otun. The immediate past Olubadan now, Baba Oba Owolabi Olakunleyin, was the Balogun of Ibadan land before he ascended the throne as Olubadan. Now the throne will go to the Otun line, headed by the highly respected former distinguished senator, former governor of Oyo State, and fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Chief Rashidi Ladoja.
Meanwhile, former Oyo State Governor Rashidi Ladoja will be the 44th Olubadan of Ibadan land. No doubt, Ladoja's name, more than a supermajority of his predecessors, is a household one across the state, thanks to his extensive foray into partisan politics, serving first as a senator representing Oyo South Senatorial District and later as governor.
Perhaps I need to add that on the Balogun line, there are 23 steps. You have to climb 23 steps of the ladder before you get to the zenith. And on the Otun line, it is 22 steps. So indeed, Chief Rashid Adewolu, Oba Rashidi Adewolu Akamuladoja is the putative Olubadan, or if you like, the Olubadan designate as of today.
But more than just his political background, Ladoja comes to the throne of his ancestors after a lifetime of experiences across many facets of life. In Lagos for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
All right, News Central's correspondent who put together that brilliant report, Victor Mbadike, now joins us from Ibadan for updates on this. Victor Mbadike, thank you for joining us. Can you describe any traditional mourning rites or ceremonies that have taken place since the announcement of his death and since you've been there covering it?
Thank you, Blessings. It's been quite an interesting time here in Okiaremo, which is where the Palace of the Olubadan is situated. Of course, in Yoruba land, kings don't die. Kings only ascend to join their ancestors. So they will tell you that they don't mourn here. Well, clearly, so when we got here, it's as quiet as whatever you can think of. The community, the vicinity is so quiet that when you drop a pin, you could even hear the sound of that pin. That is a mark of respect to a man who they refer to one of the best in the history of the Olubadans in Yoruba land. And of course, if you look at clearly behind me, there are clusters of chiefs who would be going into a meeting very soon. We do not know the details of that meeting yet, but I do understand that in the next few hours, they will come up with some deliberations and information that we're not privy to yet. But to give you more brief on what next, because of course there has to be a 44th Olubadan coronated soon. We don't know when, but I do have Mr. Jola Oloko, who is the current CPS to a former governor, Senator Rashidi Ladoja, who will be bringing us up to speed on the happenings, what we expect in the next few days or few weeks or few months. Please, Mr. Rashidi, Mr. Ajola, if you could come closer to me. First of all, let us ask you, when that announcement was made, in terms, I'm talking about the demise of Olakule right now, what was the mood like in the community and the palace, as a matter of fact?
Yes, not that he was not too old, or not that he was too young to die, because at 90, this is a person that celebrated his 90th birthday 2 days previous. That was July 5. And then on July 7, you are hearing a story about twists in human life. Twist in human life. And you are beginning to wonder, 90th birthday, we celebrated it 2 days ago, amid pomp and circumstance. And then you are hearing a different story about 2 days later that he has gone to join his ancestors. So it came to us as a rude shock. It came to us with trepidation and fear that after all, human beings are mortal and that we will go when it is time for us to go. And as I said earlier, it is not because he was too young to die, but we are talking about impact that he has created within the remarkably short period that became Olubadan.
We do understand that the traditional system in Olubadan here is quite different from the traditional style of rulership in Yoruba land, where you attain rulership by birthright, but here that's not the case. So we have two lineages from the military line and of course the civil or the administrative line. So Mr. Dola, tell us exactly how does rulership here, what does it entail basically?
Yes, if you look at the foundation of Ibadan, it's a Republican society where people celebrate industry, people celebrate achievements, they celebrate family history, they celebrate chivalry. In those days, it was a situation where might was right. Your ability to fight in battles and conquer territories was part of the criteria for promotion. in Ibadan. So you can't just say, I come from a ruling family. You have to justify the contribution of your family to the social well-being as a whole. So that is why you find that if you are reading about Yoruba history of the Yorubas by Samuel Johnson, they will tell you Ibadan is a city of warriors. So many people who fought wars for Yoruba land against Fulani, against some other people, they were basically from Ibadan. Balogun Odenilos of this world, they fought the war. The Bikules of this world, the Ogbori Efons of this world, they fought the wars. The Onibudos of this world, they fought the wars. So it's about your ability, your military prowess, your chivalry, your achievement, even as a businessman, because it is recognized. And that is why you have two lines. There is what they call the Balogun line, and there is what they call Egbeagba line, the civil line. The Balogun line used to be for warriors in those days, and they will tell you, why do you think you should become Olubadan? You can tell them, it is because I have gone to battle to fight this and brought heads of some of our enemies.
And on the other side?
And on the other side, it could be about achievement, your business achievements, your civil achievement, your promotion, and we can come to take a look at it to the present day society.
So what's the next right now? What is the next plan? He's going to join his ancestors. I'm pretty sure that there should be deliberations and meetings going on at the moment to give us insights. What is going on at the moment? Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
We won't be able to take his response at this time because we've got more lives lined up, but we'll definitely circle back to you to find out more. Thank you so much for giving us the update so far. All right, unfortunately, we can't get all of that. But in the meantime, we're going straight to the Senate chambers where we have News Central Sagir Ibrahim on standby, who is joining us now to give us more updates on what's going on there at the moment. Sagir Ibrahim, thank you for joining us. What's the current atmosphere at the National Assembly as Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan attempts to return? A lot of people have been expecting some drama.
Yes, good afternoon, Blessings. Thank you so much for having me on the news this afternoon. So expectations have been right. The general expectations being that Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan will be resuming today at the National Assembly and the entry the Senate chambers to partake in the activities of legislation today. But it may seem that the people of Kogi Central may be denied another day of representation, as just a few minutes ago, the Senate President, in fact, approached the chambers and have entered the chambers with expectations that plenary will begin in the coming moments. Talk about the environment. Well, upon entry in the National Assembly gate earlier this morning, we saw a barricaded area around the entrance. Of course, to control the inflow and influx of traffic and movement within National Assembly complex. It is also interesting to know that today is the House of Representatives open week. So whether the increase in the presence of security operatives is because or is because Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan had been touted to return to the Senate today, one cannot say precisely. But these events seem to have, run into each other pari passu, with one not being able to confidently say that this is the reason why there has been an increase. However, situation at the moment is that she is in fact not in chambers at the moment. There has been no sign of her making an appearance within the vicinity of the National Assembly, and it may seem that today might just be another day with her absent from the chambers while the plenary proceeding commences in earnest.
All right. We also want to find out how the Senate leadership has responded to the Federal High Court order that nullified her suspension.
You may have to repeat that question again. I didn't get the question.
Okay, so I'm just asking how the Senate leadership basically has responded to the Federal High Court's order that nullifies Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's suspension.
Okay, so say from the response of the Senate spokesman itemizing what for about the chamber, which of course includes a written apology to the chair and of course to the Senate itself. There's been not much of a response from any of the members who the leadership of of the Senate or any other member from the Senate. And the expectation would be to get more reaction from them today. We are hoping that you are going to make the entrance. In fact, we are hoping to see what shape and form plenary today is going to take. Following a declaration that will be present today, but since it is seeming like that might not be the case anymore, this now gives us an opportunity to hear from these lawmakers to know what exactly the expectation is, whether they feel that the punishment that has been meted on her is well within the amount of the. It's well within the amount of offense that she has committed. We also get to hear from them to know whether the punishment itself has been excessive or not. Remember, the court had mentioned that the punishment itself is excessive, but the Senate, being the organ that regulates itself in its own wisdom, says that that's what it's going to be meting on her. So we could only wait to see what these developments are. We could only wait to see what their responses are going to be to these developments in the media. And whatever that is going to be, whatever the case may be, we'll definitely be bringing up papers on that.
All right, thank you so much, Sagir Ibrahim, for bringing us the update from the Senate chambers. And definitely, like you said, whatever the update is, we'll definitely keep the viewers abreast of the situation. Thank you once again. Moving on now, the Kano State Police Command says it has launched an investigation into a violent clash between supporters of deposed Emir Aminu Ado Bayero and that of the reinstated Emir Mohammed Sanusi II. The clash occurred on Sunday as Bayero was returning from a condolence visit to the family of the late Aminu Dantata and passed en route to the Kofarkudu Palace, which is currently occupied by Sanusi. Supporters of both camps have continued to trade accusations and blame one another for the violent encounter. For more on this, we're now joined by News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu to give us more updates. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us. Now, the tension that is associated with the Emir tussle doesn't seem to be fading off anytime soon, does it now?
Yeah, it's another indication of an unresolved Emirate rivalry, of course, being triggered by a passionate love these citizens of Kano have for their preferred emir. Now, of course, it's a case of rivalry and a case of, I would say, jealousy because of the way these citizens keep on expressing the love for their preferred emir. The two, going by the account given by the two factions, that's the two, the media team of the two emirs, is the fact that, starting from the Sanusi's angle, the Kano Emirate Council claim that Ado Bayero is not supposed to pass through the Kofarkudu Palace while on his way back from the Dantata house where he went to pay condolences. And that was where they claimed that his men actually attacked the Kofarkudu Palace where Sanusi is residing, thereby causing injuries for security. On the other side, of course, Bayero's team also claims that on their way, the Sanusi's men actually came out of the Kofarkudu Palace, and then, of course, Mountain Blogger wanted them not to pass, and then that, altercation happened. So it's a clash that continues and has caused a lot of injury this time around. Unfortunately, policemen were injured, property were destroyed. This actually raised the question whether those who are behind this emirate crisis actually are happy with what is happening, and whether political forces can make ways to make these things all right. And of course, the Supreme Court also has a way of making this judgment, passing the judgment as fast as possible, so that we will know who is right, and then the tension can get down in the state. Yeah.
So clearly, like we've mentioned, it seems like a lot of blame game is going on. What are the two emirs saying regarding this development?
Yes. It's expected that the two emirs are going to calm their protesters down, but everything is still, the instance of the Nigerian police, who are expected to bring out a full statement on what actually transpired. So far, so good. The only statement we have gotten is from the Emirate Council, the Cairo Emirate Council media team, who actually claim that it's not their fault. They actually claim that the passage of Aminu Ado Bayero, the post emir, in front of the Kofarkudu Palace is actually intentional. They're actually meant to incite people. They believe that there are other routes that the post emir can actually follow to go and pay his condolence at the Aminu Dantata's house. But he preferred to choose to pass through the front of Kofarkudu Palace, thereby creating tension, which actually calls for caution, in the state as this emirate pursuit continues. So far, we've not gotten any statement from the Ado Bayero's angle as attempt to, reach the media team is unsuccessful. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Emmanuel Bagudu, for bringing us the updates from the area, and we'll definitely keep ourselves abreast of the situation. Coming up on the news, 11 dead, 567 arrested as anti-government protests escalate in Kenya. We'll tell you more of this after the break. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the news. Now, at least 11 people have died and over 500 were arrested during an anti-government protest across Kenya on Monday. This is according to the National Police Service. The demonstrations coincided with the 35th anniversary of a historic pro-democracy rally and have drawn widespread participation from disaffected youths. Security forces deployed tear gas and water cannons to disperse crowds, while reports of police brutality have added to public outrage. Rights organizations reported higher injury figures than official sources. The protests were sparked by economic grievances and recent incidents involving police misconduct, including deaths in custody and the shooting of an unarmed vendor. Unrest has intensified despite the government's withdrawal of a controversial finance bill last year. Dozens have died in related demonstrations since 2024 as frustrations continue to build. Now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has acknowledged U.S. President Donald Trump's letter imposing a 30% tariff on South African exports to U.S., citing trade imbalances and market restrictions. However, South Africa contests this interpretation, arguing that the tariffs will harm local manufacturers and exporters who rely heavily on the U.S. market. Ramaphosa's administration emphasizes long-standing economic and diplomatic ties with the U.S., positioning the current dispute as a test of mutual cooperation. And now to discuss more on this, we are joined by an international relations expert, Dr. Gideon Chitanga from Munich, Germany. Thank you so much, Dr. Gideon, for joining us.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Now, I'm just going to go straight and ask, how do you think that the 30% tariff imposed on Trump might influence the South Africa's exports and the overall trade relations with the U.S.?
It is a situation that is not precisely unique to South Africa. I think a lot of countries in Africa and Europe and in Asia are having to adjust to this new situation where the U.S. is unilaterally imposing tariffs. The figure or the percentage of the tariffs, as it stands now, is entirely calculated by the officials within the U.S. administration. And the discussions that we are hearing is that even in the beginning that the tariff target was quite exaggerated. It was not discussed with partners. And this relates to the first point, which basically addresses the idea that the U.S. seeks to address the balance of trade with its partners. The second part of the issue is that the U.S. is the second biggest trading partner with South Africa. And there is, I think, a whole industry in South Africa that a diverse industry that is linked to trade with the U.S., mainly agriculture, but other sectors as well. These industries will have to deal first with the uncertainty surrounding the conversations in the past 6 months related to tariffs. And when there is an agreement, they will have to adjust to the exact figures and budget into their production costs, the tariffs, so that they operate at a profitable rate. So they have to deal with the fact of uncertainty. They have to deal with the fact that this is a policy position that is predominantly being driven by one side of the partnerships, and precisely President Trump. They will have to deal with an economy that is struggling within South Africa, and that is really sluggish. And there aren't any immediate mechanisms, I think, to resolve this. I think different industries will have to wait for the South African government and the US government to really negotiate and strike a deal. Then from that, everyone will have to adjust to the new tariff arrangement.
So, in what ways could this tariff arrangement affect South Africa's economic growth and employment, particularly in sectors heavily reliant on US trade?
Yeah, I think there will be a huge challenge. South Africa is one of the highest unemployment rates currently. It is not economically doing well. The GDP, I think, has been stuck. It's between 0.5 to 1 percentage points growth for close to a decade. And it's facing serious, I think, a pattern of economic decline over the years. Its manufacturing sectors are not competitive, and there are other factors that are outside the main economy which are also a major challenge. There is discussion within South Africa, though, that this situation is unprecedented. It was unexpected, but the South African economy has to diversify and seek other partners and broaden the base of partners or international consumers or export destinations as a way of securing its trade with other parties. So if relations with the US at this stage are not going to work out, surely the country must survive and it should increase its trade with other countries. And I think that this had already started because the number one trading partner with South Africa is China.
All right, thank you so much.
Trade between South Africa and China has been expanding.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see how this arrangement hopefully doesn't affect too much, but how it influences a trade, especially in South Africa, and the relationship between South Africa and the US. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to another short break now, and when we come back, we'll take you through more stories across different sectors. So stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now to sports. 8-time Nigerian League champions Rangers International have announced the appointment of Chidiebere Nwobodo as the new club captain. The former assistant skipper returned to the Enugu-based side after a brief spell in the Rwandan top flight and has been immediately handed the armband. Well, that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. Now, we told you that ambush by gunmen in Plateau State leaves 70 vigilance group members dead. We also mentioned federal government warns that 16 years as entry age for tertiary education is non-negotiable. And finally, we told you 11 dead, 567 arrested as anti-government protests escalate in Kenya. You can watch News Central now on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, GoTV, channel 23. You can also stream live on YouTube, Avo TV. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Mosugu.